Hey, everybody. Good evening. It's your favorite educator, Dr. Danielle Martin, here with Education is Freedom. Tonight, we have an episode for you centered around special education, and I'm so excited to share some things with you. So, this is a space where we discuss all things education, how education takes place, both inside and outside of the classroom. And this is a space where fearless, purpose driven female leaders, change makers, advocates, you name it, from all around the world unite. Okay, and so we're going to just jump right in, tap in as I welcome today's guest. I want to introduce to you Miss Lisa Fulton, okay, who is she's a passionate advocate for autistic children and has dedicated her life to helping families in communities and educational settings worldwide. Her journey began when her son Dana was diagnosed with autism at the age of 3. While learning to navigate Dana's life and educational needs, Lisa formed PCAT, which stands for Parents Connecting Against Autism, PCAT LLC. The mission of PCAT is the pursuit of following principles: awareness, assistance, and advocacy in special education, as well as persons with disabilities. With her warm, friendly demeanor, Lisa empowers families, educators, and communities to embrace and support autistic children fully. She believes in the power of collaboration and actively encourages partnerships between parents, educators, healthcare professionals to create comprehensive support networks. Lisa is an expert in her field, and I thought it was very appropriate that I brought her on here to just share her journey and share her knowledge all about autism. So, welcome to the show, Miss Lisa Fulton.
Hi.
Hey, I'm so
Hello, Dr.
excited.
Danny. How are
How are
you?
you? How are you?
I am well, thank you.
Good, good. Listen, I'm so excited to bring you to the show this evening to just share all of the things, everything. You have such a plethora of information for parents, for community members, for students, and so of course, like it was a no brainer. I was like, oh yes, have to have my good sis on here, Miss Lisa Fulton. So welcome to the
Thank
show.
you. Thank you again. Thank you so much.
So you have wow, I didn't even make it all the way through your bio, and
Mhm.
I didn't make it all the way through because I want you to kind of I'm going to ask some questions, but I want you
Okay.
to talk us through your journey. And so the first question I have for you is I want to highlight your educational journey. And so,
Mhm.
how did you land here at this point in your career? What motivated you to be here in this space?
Wow, of course, it's very personal for me. Of course, as you indicated about my son Dana. So I actually um, graduated from Claremont University with a bachelor's in business administration and marketing. I attempted to go into business and I wanted to hit corporate America, with a bang, but it didn't work out that way. I got married and had a son.
Mhm.
And I noticed throughout his, toddler ages that he just wasn't communicating, he wasn't speaking, he wasn't responding. And so that led me to getting him evaluated through the process. And we talked about your title for early intervention. Early intervention is what we started at to get him evaluated to see what exactly was going on. I actually had an idea.
Mhm.
I had been in we didn't have all the things we have now as far as social media. We had chat rooms and things like that. And so I actually got on a chat room with some folks from London. And I was giving them some information about my son. And the one lady said, your son's autistic. I'm thinking, how can she tell me what he is?
Wow. Yeah.
But she knew immediately. And from that, I'm trying to work full time, which I was working for Pennsylvania Housing Finance Agency. I was there for 23 years and started the process of evaluation. And the more I got into the process of evaluation, the deeper it became, especially with all that comes with it, paperwork, the evaluations, the constant questions. It can make some families just not want to go through the process. But I was bent on getting him the help that he needed. He was, at that time, he was nonverbal. So he couldn't talk to me. He couldn't tell me anything. I mean, from either just saying mom or dad or hello or goodbye, nothing, just absolutely nothing. So I knew something was wrong. I just didn't know what was wrong.
So when you talk about the process evaluation,
Mm-hmm.
what talk about how when you finally did get the diagnosis,
Mm-hmm.
how did that make you feel as a parent? I'm sure I can imagine a little bit overwhelming, maybe.
Mm-hmm.
Like, what
Mm-hmm.
is that like?
It's a very overwhelming process because before you get the diagnosis, the process is so extreme.
Mm,
I I actually talked to his pediatrician about it. His
okay.
pediatrician then contacted Capital Area Intermediate Unit, and I was on a waiting list for approximately a year.
Wow.
Because I was on that waiting list so long, they started me with, and I don't know if you remember this, some people might not know, but the Polyclinic Hospital, Uptown Harrisburg,
Yeah.
they had an actual therapeutic division. And so he started him out with speech therapy there until an evaluator could see me. By that time, I knew I would go up on my lunch break when my mom took him up for them to work with him, and I would watch him through a mirror. He couldn't see me, but I could see them, so that I can learn the process of how to communicate with my child.
Mm,
So they didn't have the what do you call iPads and notebooks and all that
right.
thing. They used what they called was a pet book, which was a communication book, which was like icons that you can form together with pictures and words and numbers that you could then form a sentence. And so they would then teach him, and then I would learn from that. But I already knew. But once that evaluation came, yeah, even though I knew it, it was hard to hear.
Mm,
So we went to the evaluation. My father accompanied me on that evaluation because my husband at the time could not get off at work. And to hear the words autism.
wow.
Now, mind you, the only uh, thing I realized about autism was the movie Rain Man, which was Tom Cruise. So that was my only example of what autism was. I didn't know that there was a spectrum. I didn't know that there was a process. I just thought that everybody who was autistic was like the Rain Man.
Hmm.
So when she told me fear stepped in. Depression
Hmm.
stepped in. My anxiety was high, and I thought, if I just go to sleep and not have to worry about it, then I could just relieve some of the stress. But didn't realize that when I woke up, it was still going to be there.
Still gonna be there.
It was still going to be there. So I went back to work because I had taken some time off just to go through this process because it was lengthy. It was a long couple of days, and I was drained mentally. So I went back to work, and I was walking through the hallway, and a coworker was coming the other way. Um, and I'm going to shout her out because I feel like she was one of the people who got me together. It was her name was Nicole Proctor Johnson,
Okay.
and she told me, "Oh yeah, Lise, what happened with the evaluation?" And I told her, I said he was diagnosed with autism, and at this point it was moderate because they didn't. Now they have levels 1, 2, 3. Then it was because he was diagnosed in 2001. It was moderate, and I said, why me? And I just started crying. Why my son? I was the first time mom. I had bonus sons, but
Mhm.
this was my first time for being a mom.
Right.
And she looked at me and she said, why not you?
Oh.
And I looked at her because I looked at her kind of crazy, like, where's the empathy here?
Right, right.
Where's
Right.
the
Like,
empathy?
what you talking about?
And she said, I'd rather that God give him to you than to somebody else, because I know that you have the strength to do what God needs you to do.
Ooh.
And at that point, I just stopped the tears. And my mind started to roll. The things started to come into my mind. And then another one of our sorors, she is a reading specialist, and she at Carly Young, a professor in Pittsburgh, and she said to me, you got to treat him like you would anybody else, but you got to have the tools that you need for him to learn. He can't necessarily learn like everybody else, but he can learn. So that was something that I needed to hear, because as you know, he wasn't even in kindergarten. He was just in an early intervention classroom. So I had all of this time now to figure out, what do I do? I had early intervention to school age to then post-secondary. What was I going to do? But her words of encouragement, she said, he can learn. He's just going to learn differently.
Mm-hmm. So to parents,
Okay.
so for parents who may be afraid of the diagnosis, or just having all of the feelings that you felt at one particular time, what would you say to encourage them? I mean, I can't imagine the overwhelm, the stress, the anxiety, everything hitting you all at one time. What would you say to parents who are now looking at a diagnosis, or who may think, as you did, I think something's wrong? How would you encourage them?
Well, can you hear me? Okay.
Mhm,
Okay. The
mhm,
first thing I would do is definitely go get the evaluation done. Most parents shy away from that because it's intense. It really is. The time, it's a lot of time. It's a lot of paperwork. It's a lot of interviews with you as the parent and the family. And then trying to get this child who could possibly be nonverbal or who could have behavioral issues, trying to get them to over a period of days deal with this evaluation. So first thing I will say is, don't shy away from it. It should be done. It has to be done. You owe that to your child and to yourself, so that you know what you need and what steps you need to take going forward. Now, on the personal side of it, you got to have faith, really. I pray before every meeting, before every evaluation, every day. Um, Scriptures, Psalms 27:14 is my favorite, and I say it over and over again. Wait on the Lord, be of good courage. He shall strengthen thy heart. Wait, I say, on the Lord. So I say that all the time. You have to. You have support groups. They're out there. It's going to get to you. Some people always, and I'm on many autism um, support groups and groups on Facebook and Instagram and all those things. And I always hear autism won today. Autism won today. I can't do it anymore. What can I do? I feel isolated. Because you do. You do. You feel isolated because you can't really do and fit into the same arena as everybody else all the time. You can't come and go as you please, like you're used to doing. Your child can't interact with other children, and so you feel bad that they may feel alone. So there's going to be a ton of emotions that you have there, and they're not going away. So when I go to speak at times, moms usually ask me the same question. And I always say to them, you got 5 minutes to feel sorry for yourself, because you got a lot to do. Like, put your big girl pants on. You got to get to work.
I love that. I love that you said that. You got 5 minutes to feel sorry for yourself because we got work to do. You got 5 minutes to go and gather yourself or gather your sister, who is. I love that because so many times we get caught in, may get caught up in the diagnosis or, and not just the diagnosis of autism, but diagnosis of many things, or and we automatically of course and rightfully so get emotional about it, but then sometimes it's like the defeat comes right in and then instantly we're defeated. And if we don't, you talked about faith and God and scripture, and if we don't immerse ourselves in that, then yeah, it's real easy to become defeated.
Fall quickly, quickly. I keep my phone on 24 hours a day. And I couldn't tell you the amount of women that call me in the middle of the night. Because so many things could happen. They're runners. Some of their children are elopers, which means they can get out the house. There's a young man missing right now in down in the DMV area, in the New York area. They can get out the house. There's people that just can't stand the constant being up because some of them don't like to sleep. Some of them can't handle, and especially if you're a single mom, you got to work, you got to get up, you got to take care of them. How am I supposed to sleep and be able to be dependable and functional at my job if I can't sleep because my child won't sleep? So you get I get all kinds of thought calls, and it's just a constant of trying to be there for them on an emotional level, and then trying to give them options for some resources that are possibly out there that their child could benefit from in their area. Because again, it's not just people in Pennsylvania, but people all around. So every state is different when it comes to services.
So it sounds like there is an education that you have to have
Mm-hmm.
around this to, one, be able to understand what's going on, and then two, to be able to know how to service or find the resources to best serve
Mm-hmm.
your children. Wow. And you kind of talked about some of the challenges. I was going to ask you if you could talk about some of the challenges you and other parents face, but I think you just covered that. And if you can go into a little bit deeper about what you do with PCAT and how we heard that you leave your phone on all hours of the night, but
I
my
do.
goodness, like when do you sleep? But you
Mm-hmm.
know,
I
how
know.
does your business what do you do for these parents?
Well, you mentioned the three A's to PCAT, which is awareness, assistance, and advocacy. So all of those play a separate part, but they're also intertwined as well. So what I learned from this, I basically educated myself, and then with the help of some of the boards that I was then placed on, and some of the people that I surrounded myself with. Once Nicole said what she said, I got to work. And I started to find workshops and conferences and meetings and on with local government and um, Representative Danielle Bryan's office. And I just pushed and I pushed. Now, every parent's not going to be that way, but it was important for me to know because I'm a person who needs to know what I'm dealing with or what I need to do. I need to think outside the box. I need to think about every situation. And I think I drove my family crazy with that, but that's just who I am. So what I did was I promised myself that I would never let another parent feel the way that I was feeling. That I would learn this navigation system called autism and special needs and people with disabilities, so that I can assist them in every way, so that that's less stress on them, you know. So the awareness is bringing the awareness out that this does exist. Now, let me be clear. I don't just advocate for autistic children. I advocate for anybody with an IEP, an individualized educational plan, or a 504 plan. Any disability, anybody that has an IEP, I will advocate for. They can have ADHD, they can have Down syndrome, they could have uh, learning deficiencies in math and reading and language arts. It doesn't matter. I will advocate if you have an IEP. But autism is where I started. So I bring the autism awareness, telling them things that they have to start at, the evaluations, bringing the awareness about in the community so that people can be aware and accept our children. That's another thing, acceptance. The assistance comes with the paperwork that happens. I'm there for some of the services that are probably going to need through Dauphin County Medical Assistance, because that's how we get our services paid for outside of the school district. Because when you're in public education schools through school age and intervention, they pay for services that those children need, whether it's speech therapy, occupational therapy, physical therapy, whatever therapies they might need, they pay for those services through the districts. And so I usually help also make sure they get them through the educational system, but also on the outside in the community support areas through agencies throughout Dauphin County, Cumberland County, or any part of central Pennsylvania or anywhere that has a system set up like this. And of course, the advocacy. I do attend the IEP meetings for families. I attend the 504 plans. I attend for the notice of educational, recommended educational placements and evaluations, so the process of the evaluation for the families. So I attend all meetings. I look at all IEPs prior to, or even the evaluations prior to meetings. And then I have a meeting with the families to go over what they would like as a part of them being the IEP team, because they are. So many families go into these meetings through the school districts and they're nervous, they're scared, they're intimidated, they're afraid because they're using the lingo, they're using the acronyms, IEP, 504, LRE, LEA, and they don't know what that is. They just say, sign here, here, here. So what they don't know is you have 10 days to sign that NORP, or 10 days to sign that IEP. You don't have to do it the same day as the meeting. And that's what the law states. So to get more into the law, I encourage families to know the law. I know it's a lot to know, but just know the specifics for your child. Leave the other part to me, but at least to know where your child falls on the spectrum or for that disability, to know what safeguards they have, because there's safeguards in place for you as a family, for you as the parent, and for your child as the student. So
This
just so that they know.
this is so good. If you're just joining us, welcome to the show. We have Miss Lisa Fulton here with us here on Education is Freedom, and tonight we're tackling special education and what that looks like, early intervention to post-secondary. So I'm encouraging you to like and share this post if you know someone with a student or a family member or a child with special education needs. She's not just an autism person who advocates, solely for autism. She advocates for all students who have individualized education plans, 504s, all of the things. So please like and share this show here. I want to also invite you to tap into our She Is Still Dope network. And so, Miss Fulton, this is a global podcasting network. And so for folks who are not in central Pennsylvania like we are, and they are listening to this, does advocacy, does assistance, do all those things, like, do you work across state lines, or are there other resources that they could find? Like, what if I'm in Tennessee and I'm listening to this, what am I supposed to do?
Yeah, so yes, so I have advocated for people throughout the country. Is it a little bit Trying, yes, because I have to then learn that state's law. Because for people with disabilities, there's federal law, and then there's state law, and then there's local law, and then school district have policy and procedure. So especially being in the Commonwealth of Pennsylvania, they give every district, every county the option to decide how they want things done. Now, states like if somebody's in Tennessee, or I just spoke to a young lady in Louisiana a couple of weeks ago, theirs is a little different. So I had to really do my research. I had to find how districts ran. I needed to find how they did the process, and most of them are pretty much the same as far as the evaluation process. It's just what's offered and how to get them there is the issue. So what I would usually suggest is that I will look up maybe advocates in their local area. I also look up to see if they have an autism society available or around in their area for them. And I also look, especially I go straight to their Department of Education page, because then I look on there to see what and how the process works. If they have a special education consult line, who the director of the Bureau of Special Education would be in that area. And then I basically send them there, in addition to me helping them go through that process. So yes, I've advocated for somebody as far as New Mexico.
Oh, okay. Okay. Wow.
Mm-hmm.
I didn't realize that.
Mm-hmm.
So we are talking a lot about early intervention, but what does it look like as they begin to grow up and get into elementary and upper elementary and what I'm assuming based off of your facial expression that it seems like more challenges come down the
It
pipe.
is challenging. It's challenging to navigate this process for it. Let's just look at it this way. It's hard to navigate the medical things that they have to go through and the
We ain't even talking
evaluations.
about that.
We ain't talking about that. So imagine that on top of making sure your child gets what they need, making sure they're in the right placement. Okay. So once you get out of early intervention, you can go into early learning as early as, which is like K4, K5, as far as 4 years old to maybe 5. Then once we get into the first grade or even in kindergarten at that time, they do what they call a transition from one area to the next. So early intervention goes to transition into early learning into school aged. So once they get into early intervention is pretty manageable. And then once you get into the early learning system, it becomes a little bit harder because now they're bringing out things, positives that your child has, the things that they need to start learning. They're not learning their colors, or they're not understanding their numbers, or they can only count to a certain number. So you got to be on point with all of that. But once you get into school age, that's where the process comes, because even though you've had these outside evaluations and even with early intervention, guess what? A school district won't take that. They won't always take the evaluation that you already have. So now you have to go through a whole new evaluation process with the district in which you reside in.
So you have to go through their
Their
process.
evaluations. Yes, you have to go through their process. Now, they'll take the evaluation, but it doesn't necessarily mean that they will use it. So I've had some families that have known their child was on the autism spectrum, but districts might say, we don't see that. That's not what we see. They just need a little work. They're going to grow out of certain things. Now, I'm not downing a district. I'm just using examples that some parents have dealt with. We don't see a problem. We can get them on task. We can get them on track. We can get them up to grade level. You have to give us an opportunity. And guess what? That is the law. You have to provide a district that opportunity for them to see or take their ideas or their suggestions, and you have to give them an opportunity to see what they can do. Now, I'm not a person that gives you too much time, because I don't have that kind of time to wait for parents. But The law says I have to give you an opportunity. So how much that might be, it might be a couple of weeks for me. Now, if parents want to wait longer, that's their option. But I always tell them, you can call as many IEP meetings a year that you want to. You can call one every other week if you want to. I just had a meeting Monday with this with the family. We're having another meeting this Wednesday coming up next week. So you can call as many meetings as you want. Don't let them think that you can only do one in the beginning of the year and one at the end of the year. No, you have to give them the opportunity. And if it doesn't work, what they're suggesting that we do, they always say you have to go least restrictive to restrictive. So I have to make sure everything else works before I can really delve into where I think a child needs to be. And that's it can work for some people, especially those on the higher functioning, that's on the higher level of the spectrum, or some that might just need a little push that have learning deficiencies. But most of the time, they need what they need. But that's what the law says.
So, okay, so I'm hearing and what you just said is that one, parents and students, families have power,
Mm-hmm.
and they have a voice.
Absolutely.
And I think so often, and even in my time in the K through 12 system, I don't know what it is where parents do not realize the power that they have.
Mm-hmm.
And it was important to me as a classroom teacher to leave my door open always as a message to the school community, but not just to the school community, to the parents who would come in, that my door is always open. And
That's
so
awesome.
I just, if you're listening to this, parents, and the students and families and grandparents, you have a voice.
Have a
You
voice.
have power. What you have to say about your child is important. And there are educators who welcome that.
Absolutely. Mm-hmm.
And we have to, I think, we have to get back to the it takes a village to raise a child, because
I say it all the time.
as I'm listening to you
Mm-hmm.
describe being overwhelmed, stressed, having anxiety, all of these things, but there still is a necessity for me to get myself together to then educate myself and then now educate others. Like that is a lot.
It's a lot. And you know what? You're your child's best advocate. So you know what works best for your child. If they need to take breaks in between classes, you know, because you're at home with them, you know how overwhelmed they might become. You know how much they can take. So you're a part of the IEP team. When you first walk into that meeting, the first form of papers they're going to give you is safeguards. Look at them. Don't just sign it and put it in your purse or your briefcase. Look at them. Those safeguards are important. They tell you that if you don't like what's going on here are some resources that and things that you can do, whether it's appeals, whether it's resources for advocacy, they give them to you. It's just that parents don't always look at it. They sign it and put it to the side and okay, now what? So look at them.
And so what I'm also hearing, what you just said is, because also as I'm piecing this conversation together in my head, I'm hearing too, if it's too emotional for you, step away from the document for maybe a
Mm-hmm,
day or so. Take the
mm-hmm,
time to come back to it and read it. Whatever you don't understand, again, parents and families, you have a voice and you have the power. So if you don't understand something, please ask.
mm-hmm.
Please reach out and find an advocate such as the one we're speaking with this evening, who's amazing. Um, we have to be a little bit more proactive too in this.
Absolutely.
Yeah, we can't just,
Mm-mm. You can't let
there's
it
no
go
time for
because
rest.
they're intimidated. I mean, they're intimidated going in. And then I have to be honest, I was too in my first IEP meeting. I didn't know what to expect. You have a team of people. You have the teacher, you have a regular education teacher, a special education teacher, you have OT, occupational therapist, physical therapist, speech therapist. You have an LEA representative, which is either a principal, a special education director from the administration building. You have somebody there. So you have all of these people in addition to other teachers. The higher you go in, grade level, you might have the math teacher or the Spanish teacher or the English teacher. You have a table full of people, and then you have you or the husband or a grandparent or, and so when you're looking at the other side, you're looking at all these people who have all these things to say about your child. And so you have to put up, get ready for it, and no, don't feel. I have some parents who call me and say, I need you to be there, and I might have another IEP meeting that I can't make, but that was the only availability for them. So I'll tell them, I'll give you some pointers. Number one, you don't have to sign anything. Number two, ask as many questions as you can and write down your questions before you go into this meeting. If there's not answer, we'll talk about it later. And then always let them know, I'll get back to you because I have to speak to my advocate first, which they don't always like to hear. So you have 10 days to do anything. In that time frame, you might want to send an email to the teacher or give a phone call to the LEA representative or speak to a specific a math teacher. You might want to find out some things before you decide, and then you can call another meeting to discuss what questions and what concerns that you have again. So even though you have that IEP meeting, you can follow up with another one.
I love that. That was so. You all better be out there taking notes. And listen, if you just chimed in, please join us on the She Is Still Dope app. We have an app. We fancy, y'all. This is a global podcasting network of amazing change makers and advocates such as Miss Lisa Fulton here, who is here this evening with us talking all things special education. So please like and share this post here. Man, we are into it. So we've been through early intervention, elementary school, middle school. So what happens when students decide, because I am on the other end of all of this now. I've been through K-12, but I'm in higher education now. So what happens when students who have IEPs or paperwork decide that they're going to come to college? What happens to that paperwork?
Okay, so before I get to that, let me just touch a little bit on transition age. And I'm only going to touch on transition age for Pennsylvania because, like I said, it's different for other states. So the Commonwealth indicates that at 14 years old, a child can advocate on their behalf. Now, it doesn't necessarily mean that they know what they're doing, but what they try to do is give them independence, give them a voice to explain things that they're feeling or going through or what they can and can't do. But they also allow students to not be able to take medication if they don't want to at 14. They can lose services, come from outside services can be lost at 14. So from 14 on up, you got to constantly fight for your child. So what I did, this is me, not every parent, but for what I did was
time out. I gotta stop. I gotta stop here. And I'm sure people listening are like, what?
Yeah.
Because I've also worked in a high school and I know what it was like working with regular education students at 14. Okay. Right. So in research and all of that, our brains aren't even fully developed until the age of 25, right? You can't even vote until you're 18. You can't drive or get your permit, until you're 16. And so you're saying that at 14 years of age, all of these things can happen.
And it can take away from a parent's ability to make a decision for a child. If you don't have something in place, now technically 18 is like the thing where you have to start getting into power of attorneys or guardianships. But like I had to get a verbal okay from my son to be able to speak on his behalf, which took me to a point where now that was on an outside agency. In school, they will still talk to you, but they do give the child the ability to say, for example, I think I'll be okay for that. I don't think I need to be taken out of class anymore to take my test. No, you're still going to be removed because that's part of your special design instruction. Your SDI is on your IEP. So therefore, you still will be taken out to take your test or your quizzes so that you can concentrate and that there won't be no distractions. You may need help with reading the instructions. So I don't want that taken away. But a child at that age can say no. And they can say, I don't want to take a medication. They can deny certain things that may be helping them get through things. So 14, it's one thing I've been really working on, trying to go to Congress about that, to get that change within the Commonwealth, because like you said, a child is not even fully developed. How can you tell me what's best for you at that age? But they look at it as them advocating on behalf of themselves. But if they don't know what's going on, how they going to advocate for themselves?
And you know what else I'm thinking about? I am thinking about just the time in which we live in, right? There's so much plaguing our young people, and you have a high rate of bullying.
Mm-hmm.
You know, all these things that may play into a student's decision to say, no, I don't need that,
Mm-hmm.
but them not even fully understanding that you do need it.
I
Like,
have a student now that won't go to learning support because she doesn't want to be made fun of. And because she's 16 or 17 now, she doesn't have to go.
that hurts my heart.
Mm-hmm.
That
Mm-hmm.
and but
Mm-hmm.
it's a reality.
It's a reality. So get the power of attorney. Look, at 15, I got it for my son. I was like, oh, you will not tell me I can't make a decision. I'm going to get that power of attorney now, and I'm going to give it to you to let you know that they're not, because I'm going to tell you right now, autism, it's the highest rate of dropout rate is in the autism community. They have the highest rate of dropouts. And I don't want to bring up something, but I think it needs to be said, when it comes into mental health, we have the highest suicide rate as well. So you're right, bullying comes into effect, especially in this day and age. They call them stupid or dumb. I have a student now that told me, I'm just stupid. I'm like, no, you're not. You're not stupid. You just learn differently. Don't ever say that. You're not stupid. So it breaks my heart to hear that. So with all of that being said, I mean, because parents still fight, don't get me wrong, because that's what they can do. It doesn't mean that it happens that way, but it's there. So moving forward to where you are, you can't take those IEPs with you. You can't take those 504s with you. They're not going to address you as a student with a disability unless you go to them. So, there's support services available on the college level. And I have a student who has an IEP and a GIEP, which is a gifted IEP, through her educational career to 12th grade. Now that she is a student in college, a college student, she had to actually go to her advisor. She had to go to support services. She and her mother went. The first thing they did was I had to talk her into giving her mom power of attorney, which she didn't want to do. I'm grown now. I can make my own choices. And I said, well, what if this happens and you're not able to understand? What if you get overwhelmed and you can't get the words out? And yeah, you're right, Miss Lisa. Maybe I should do that. So she gave her that power of attorney to help her through this process, because otherwise they don't got to talk to mom. They don't have to talk to dad. They don't have to talk to grandmom. It's the student that they're going to talk to. So now that mom has that power of attorney, she can do a little bit of help in trying to navigate this with her. So now you have to then, they'll set you up with additional timing and taking the testing. They'll set you up with tutors. They'll give you extra time for projects, extra hours in seeing your advisor or those particular professors. I even have a parent right now that I help for two of his daughters, who is a student in school himself, who has a plan because he has children that have disabilities. There, he's able to get that assistance because he has so much going on. So they give him that extra time. So it's just a matter of you letting them know what you need, and they give it to each of your professors, and that professor then assists you in any way that you can. But they're not going to take that IEP though. They're going to go on the basis of what you need at that point.
So you are absolutely right. And those of you who are watching this and who have older students who may have IEPs and such, um, I am in higher education. I have served on both the advising and now in professorship or role or what have you. Yes, it is up to the student to self-disclose. So
Mhm.
on every campus, there is an office of disability services or student services that can assist you and will help you with those things. Um, as an advisor, yes, this exactly what Lisa just said. The students will come to me, self-disclose. We work together to let the professors know there is a developed plan, whether that plan be the students have extra time on tests to, they have 3 days extra to turn into in a paper, whatever the need is, it happens. So if
Mhm.
there is a possibility of it happening, but it all lies in the student self-disclosing. And
Yep.
so back to
Mhm.
my bullying point, if
Mhm.
they're experiencing that, in high school, a lot of students go unassisted in college and end up dropping out
Yep.
because of the way they felt, and they're embarrassed to
Embarrassed. Mhm.
self-disclose. and
Yes,
and
they are.
it's really sad. I'm always proud of the students who do self-disclose because it's a challenge, it's nothing wrong with it though. And
Right.
please know that the assistance is there.
It's there. You
You just
just
have
have
to
to
know.
you just
Yep.
have to speak up, and professors don't acknowledge everybody's needs all through the classroom, because now you have online classes, you have, because of COVID, and a lot of them have hybrid schedules and whatnot. So they actually, might say, like Professor Young and they might say, they might get a note in the chat room to them and say, I need to see you after class because I have a question, or I need extra time. And she'll get back to them. Not a problem. I'll see you then. So you can do it. You can email them prior to class if you don't want to speak up in class, to say, after class, can I see you? Can I make an appointment so that I can talk to you about extra time? I've had students that have had a week for a midterm. Now they necessarily didn't take the midterm home, but they had a week to prepare, an extra week to prepare. So as long as you advise them and as long as you self-disclose, like you said, you'll be fine. And nobody around you has to even know what's going on.
And it's okay. It's
It's okay.
it's totally okay. And I've had students in the past. So what has happened on the professor side for me is I get an official letter from the
Mm-hmm.
Office of Disability Services telling me the student the need, and it's up to me to provide. That's how it's written. It is up to you to provide whatever it is that the student needs. There's one student in particular came to see me, like you're speaking of, came to see me after class to talk to me and let me know and told me, you should have received something from the Office of And I was so proud and I was excited. And this student was a freshman.
Oh,
I was,
wow.
and I told this student, you know
I'm
what?
impressed.
I am so proud of you. Yes, I
Hmm.
did. Yes, I did receive it, and we'll work together to make sure that you experience success in this class. That's exactly what I told her.
That's
And and
awesome.
and so, we have to be intentional
Hmm.
about what it is that our students need. We
Absolutely.
we can't be prideful.
No.
We have to ask questions
Hmm.
because there are resources out here that will help you help your student.
Absolutely. I'm so glad that you said that. So kudos to you, for, because not every professor is like
Right.
you or Professor Young or Professor Clark. A lot of my soldiers that are professors or educators out here, a lot of them aren't like that. They say, well, you still have the work to do, so get it done. I know you need more time, but you might get 2 days instead of 3 days or 4 days. I mean, some of them aren't as open and personable as you are, and have a good rapport with their students. And I think them having a good rapport with you is what makes them feel a little bit more comfortable to come to you and talk about their needs.
And
So
parents, just so you know, it is something that we have to follow. Like we don't have the option of not servicing your
no,
student in whatever that letter says.
you
We
got to
don't
do it.
we can't opt out of that. That
Mm-mm.
is, you said it way back earlier when we first started. Your child just learns differently, and that's okay. Now, let me say this too, on the collegiate level.
Hmm.
Um, as a professor, I'm not talking to parents.
No, I know. I already know that. I know that.
Now you know that, and
Yeah.
just so you know, for the audience,
Parents, nope, can't.
it's very different. Like, when I used to teach first grade, Lil Johnny's mom would call me. Me and Lil Johnny's mom would have a conversation. But at this
Right.
level, I'm not talking to parents.
Nope.
So it just reminded me of the conversation we were having earlier.
Hmm.
About 14 years old. So when they step foot on a college campus, we are interacting with the student unless the student fills out what is called a FERPA form that
Hmm.
allows us to speak to their parents. Um, that's it. If they don't
That's
fill
it.
that out, even though parents, you are the one probably paying that nice bill that's coming to your house, we're not talking to you
You can't.
unless
No.
they fill out that paperwork that says that we can communicate with you and give you information about the students. So I just wanted to throw that out there quickly.
That's great information, because there is a lot of parents that call me Miss Fulton. I tried to talk to, and I said, now calm down. This is not school aged. This is post secondary. They're supposed to be getting to be independent. They're supposed to be having communication with their professors and with their advisors and with therapists or whatever supports they need. This is the area in which you put them, and you wanted them to go further. You have to give them the opportunity. And it law says that those professors do not have to speak to you. So
Don't shoot me. Shoot the messenger in the system because it's not my fault.
no,
But
no, it's not.
I wanted to make that clear. But oh my goodness, Lisa, thank you so much. This was so much information. And for those of you who are watching, I hope that you got all that you need. I hope that you were taking notes. Maybe you'll even play it back, to get more information that you may have missed the first time. Hopefully you like and share this podcast with someone else that you know who may have a student or a child with special education needs. Before we go, how are you on social media? Like, how can we follow you? How can we reach out to you? How can we support you?
Well, I am. I have, well, right now, me and websites, I've been revamping this thing for a while, but hopefully it will be done before the end of the year. The person doing it has a lot going on. So, um, my website will be up soon, but I do have a personal page, Lisa Art Fulton, on Facebook. And then I have Instagram, which is ARPIE, ARPIE 1913.
Mhm.
But I also have my business page, which is Parents Connecting Against Autism LLC. So usually I don't do the Instagram too much, because I'm pretty much looking at those, but you can message me on Messenger through my personal or my business page. So I do have those.
Good, good.
Mhm.
So we know how we know how to reach out to you and find you if we can. So
Yes.
listen, this conversation has been amazing. Thank you so much for your time,
Thank
sharing
you.
your journey, because I know that is very personal for you. But you know
Yeah.
what? That's a testimony, and that
Mhm.
testimony can reach out and touch somebody else and encourage them. And so I thank you for sharing that vulnerability and just sharing all that you have shared with us this evening. So, for you all out there, thank you so much for joining us this evening on Education is Freedom. I hope that you've been inspired and empowered by our conversation. This show airs the second and fourth Tuesday of every month. And so I'm personally inviting you to remain connected by downloading our She Is Still Dope app, following us on all social media platforms. And until next time, keep shining and never stop learning. Thank
Thank
you so
you.
much.